Good night and welcome to UNCUT. This week we are joined by the man in the hottest seat, the Minister of Education and Culture, Francis Fonseca, and he has recently come off an Easter weekend where, unlike those of you who went to San Pedro or Plasencia or Cayo or somewhere nice, maybe to your own backyard, this minister could not. He was involved, and I want to pull out the quote. The Prime Minister described the meetings with the unions as full, frank, and courteous. Minister, you met with those unions on Good Friday and Easter Monday in quite exhaustive sessions. And if we could, guys, I don't know if we have the statement from the Prime Minister, that I just want to hear a brief part where he describes really where we are at the end of that. Are we able to hear that now?
After careful analysis and consultation, we remain convinced that a salary adjustment of $60 million is absolutely necessary. Additionally, we propose to continue the increment freeze, which will account for another $20 million annually. Unfortunately, the unions have not, so far, agreed with us that these adjustments are needed. It is important for all of us, union members included, to know that the government has provided the unions with all information that they have requested. If they complained that information has been kept from them, it is not so.
Heard it from the Prime Minister. He was just saying that, you know, after these consultations, that we have determined that we must go ahead with these cuts. 60 million in the 10% and 20 million in increments. Minister, how did we get here in terms of, essentially, the talks failed. They broke down. They did not produce an outcome that redounds to the benefit of either side. Tonight, the government is preparing to read a budget with those cuts, and the unions are gearing up, as the Prime Minister himself said, for industrial action, which he said is their right. What went wrong?
Okay. Well, first of all, Jules, a pleasant good evening to you and your viewers. I'm not sure I should thank you for the invitation, but it's always a pleasure to sit down with the distinguished Dean of the Press Corps. And I think you know that I have great respect
Indeed.
For your consistency and your unshakable commitment to your craft. So
thank you.
It's a pleasure to be with you.
Please tell everyone in Cabinet.
I will do so. You know, I think as the Prime Minister said in his statement, Jules, we have been engaged in these consultations with the unions since February. The first meeting our team had with them was February 10th. And he's right. Those consultations have been in good faith. They have been frank. They have been honest. And I think the real challenge that we face is that, and the unions have said this to us very openly, they feel abused. They feel as if they have been abused for many, many years. And in particular, they have said it, they feel they have been abused over the last decade dealing with the UDP government. So there's a lack of trust in the process. And I think that is fundamentally at the core of why we have not been able to achieve a compromise, a meeting of the minds. There are many, many issues that we agree upon. We have discussed those at length. You know, we've had these discussions. We've talked about everything. I know people like to focus on the wage adjustment, the salary cut, but we've been very, very open with the unions about everything. We've talked about debt restructuring. We've talked about capital projects in great detail. We've talked about goods and services. We've talked about long-term plans in terms of pension reform, social security reform. These are important things to the unions. We've talked about governance reform. You know, they have a lot of ideas, a lot of good ideas. So even as we met over the Easter holiday, I still felt and I still feel today that those union leaders who are at the table with us are operating in good faith. I think that they want to find a solution. They understand. I am absolutely confident that they understand the crisis that we're faced with in Belize, the public finance crisis that we're faced with. The challenge they're having, and this is a challenge that all of us have as leaders, is bridging that trust gap between government and their membership. And so they always come back to us and say, listen, we want tangible things. We want concrete steps taken.
But
we keep
you
saying
offer
to
them 5 hours off on the work
Absolutely.
week, financing, waiving the deadlines on loans, working
Loans.
with the commercial banks.
Yes, many. We
But
thought
at the end
many
of the
good
day,
things.
it wasn't enough.
It has not been enough, yeah, it has not been enough.
But it really, Minister, it has not been enough. One gets a sense, not so much because of trust, but because these people and their members can't afford to take a hit in their wages. For many of them, you know, they are on the margins of slipping out of being able to afford their existence. You know, they've marched before. We see the whole footage here. Will they be marching in the streets like this again?
It's very possible, Jules. That is absolutely their right. And you're right. We fully understand that. We appreciate that these teachers, public officers are struggling, just as are other Belizeans. You know, as the Prime Minister pointed out in his statement, we have 68,000 people, I believe, lost their jobs last year. Unemployment, 30%, underemployment, another 38%. So no government, and especially a new government, would want to come to the table and say, listen, as our first order of business, we have to discuss with the unions a salary cut. Absolutely, that would not have been obviously our choice. The fact is that is where we are. That is where we are after 12 years of waste and abuse, mismanagement, corruption under the UDP government. That took us to the edge of the cliff. And last year, COVID pushed us over the cliff. That is the reality. And we're left with no choice but to say to the unions, listen, this is where we are. We need your help in terms of finding a homegrown solution, because if we don't work together and find some common ground, the alternative will be something that none of us want.
I get the impression that the Prime Minister, from what he said today, and your government, you all are prepared to withstand whatever pressure or industrial action these unions may bring because of the extremely strong mandate you all have received in 2 successive elections. The municipal election was almost like a referendum on the popularity of the first 100 days of the PUP, and you came out with a resounding support. So is it that your government is saying, all right, we did our best, now you do your worst, and let's see where we go from there?
No, absolutely not. I mean, our position is not grounded in any arrogance, any sense of arrogance and sense of
But you all are a puppet. The people
Yes,
are with you.
indeed.
The people are with you. Elections show it.
We believe so. The people are with us. But we still have great respect for the roles of the unions. They are our partners in development. We will not be able to get our Plan Belize agenda accomplished without the support and help of the public officers, without the support and help of the teachers. So we are still open. I think we've made it very clear. Certainly at our last meeting on Easter Monday with the unions, we said, listen, we will take back your position to the cabinet. We did that on Tuesday. Cabinet, we responded to them, indicating that we would be moving forward with the budget on Friday, and that budget would reflect $60 million savings. But we are, as the Prime Minister said in his speech, we are open to any constructive dialogue that can help us to arrive at some meaningful consensus on the way forward. We want to work with the unions.
I want to cue the ad that came out. I think it went over social media earlier tonight, and I sent that into the control room. Is this ad in that tone of saying that we want to work in good faith? I mean, it's an attack on the unions, guys. Are we able to cue it? It accuses the unions of showboating, saying that everyone has made a sacrifice and they won't make a sacrifice. It's an attack on the unions, and it's from the PUP. Do you support?
I saw it for the first time when I was coming over here. Somebody sent it to me, so I saw it for the first time.
Minister?
I think no. Listen. I believe, as I said earlier, I genuinely and sincerely believe that the leaders that we are engaged with around the table are acting in good faith. I believe they understand, as I said, the severity of the economic crisis that the country is facing. I think in good faith, they want to work with us and find a solution. I keep making this point. There is a trust gap that exists, that they themselves are frustrated that they are not able to bridge that gap between themselves, ourselves, themselves, and their membership. So I think, that is fair.
Are you saying that the union leaders are of one mind, but their memberships are of another mind? That the union leadership accept the position of the government?
My sense is that, obviously I don't speak for them, but my sense is that they do accept that we have to make these adjustments. Now, obviously, there are differences of opinion as to what those adjustments should be, and we've talked about that. We invited them to make proposals to us about the thresholds. What can we look at? How can we look at a tiered approach to the cuts? We excluded all workers under $12,000 from any salary adjustment. We said to them, let's look at maybe 12 to 40,000 and 40,000 and above. So we are still open to that kind of discussion.
But if you say that the union leaders are more or less understand the absolute position of the government, which is that, hey, as the Prime Minister said, we borrowed 30 million last month. We can't afford to keep doing it. Why then that ad? Isn't that ad an attack on the unions, which will undermine any goodwill and confidence that you all have built up between them?
Yeah, well, again, I mean, as I said, I saw the ad for the first time on my way over here. So
right.
I don't know who produced the ad.
But it's a PUP ad, Minister.
Yeah, but I'm saying I don't know who produced it within the PUP. But
right.
Again, it's not something, as I said, it's not something that I would do. I believe that there's an opportunity for us still to arrive at some common ground with the unions. And I believe we should exhaust every opportunity to do so.
No, Minister, you are one of the most experienced ministers in the cabinet. We have a lot of very new ministers. And in a sense, you've seen this movie before. You were there in 2006. I think the leading protagonists then were Dylan Renault from the PSU.
He's my finance officer.
Say again?
He's the finance officer in the Ministry of Education.
Wow, you see how the circle brings things around. So it was Dylan from the PSU. I know Mr. Fraser was there from the BNTU, Tony Fuentes,
yes,
Anthony, now former PUP mayor, and Zenaida Moya, I believe, from the APSSM.
Right.
That was her first, 2005 was her first burst of fame. But I'm saying that you've seen this movie before. But you all are in a very different position now. You all are a popular government. Will this just blow over like a Lee Breeze, Minister?
No, I wouldn't describe it in that fashion, Jules. And that's not our objective. Listen, I keep making this point. We are not here because we want to be here. We're here because we're forced to be here. The country is in crisis. Our public finances are at a critical point. We have, we talk about kicking the can down the road, the proverbial can down the road. Well, there's no more road. The can cannot be kicked any further down the road. There is no more road. We've hit the wall. The rubber has hit the road, whatever expression you want to use. We are there, and all of our financial experts have made it very, very clear to us that we have to take these actions. If we're going to be a responsible government, we have to take these actions. So we would love, the Prime Minister says it all the time in Cabinet, we would love to give the teachers and public officers a pay raise. And we hope to do so before our 5-year term is finished. But right now, we are faced with an imminent financial crisis. We have to address that crisis. And we have an obligation. Listen, we respect the unions, we respect the public officers, the teachers in particular. I have great respect for them. I have to work with them every day. But we have an obligation to the entire country. 68,000 people out of work. The tourism industry, as you know, has been shut down for over a year. People are hurting, or people are hurting. So we have an obligation to all the citizens of this country, not only to the public officers and teachers. And so all of us have to share in this burden. All of us have to make a sacrifice. And we know, as you said earlier, that the public officers and the teachers, they are experiencing the same challenges. They are having difficulty meeting their commitments, paying their bills, putting food on the table. So we know it is a challenging time for everyone. And so our commitment is to keep this period of pain, if you like, as short as possible, and to get back on track so that we can get back to work and deliver Plan Belize for the people of this country.
If the Prime Minister were to call you and ask you for one single nugget of advice, which would, because right now we're on the precipice of industrial action, one single nugget of advice which would bring us back from the edge and make this extremely difficult pill a little easier for the unions to swallow, what would you suggest to him?
Well, the Prime Minister and I talk every day. We talk every day, and we've discussed all of these things. There's nothing new that I can say to him. If I had the answer to that, I would have said it to him already. We have put everything on the table, Jules. We have everything that has been asked of us from the unions, we have tried to deliver on. They talked about the salaries of ministers and allowances. We have addressed all of those issues. Everything. Their own commitments, as you mentioned earlier, in terms we have made facilities available through DFC, the National Bank. We've reached out through the central bank to the commercial banks to ensure that they are able to carry their loans and do not get into any default. All of these issues, we have tried to soften the blow. We've discussed, trying to negotiate packages for our teachers, for example, internet packages for our teachers with BTL, to soften the blow. So we've looked at everything. We've looked at everything that we could possibly do. We've asked the unions. I would throw that question to the unions. What more can we do? What more can we put on the table that will allow us to find common ground that we seek?
Are the unions satisfied, or were you all able to satisfy the unions that the ministers had sacrificed enough from their salaries and their allowances?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, the union said some of their members felt that we should go higher, 20% salary cut.
Is that unreasonable? You didn't accede to that? Did you all consider that an unreasonable request?
They said they did not ask. They said that some of their members had said that.
Yes.
But they themselves, many of the unions said, listen, they were asking 10% and the allowances, and we were the ones who said, okay, we will go further in terms of the 15% salary cut and the allowances.
So you propose a 15% salary cut, 50% cut on allowances.
Right. Yes.
And that would leave you with, the average minister with a take-home salary of, I want to say something in the vicinity of maybe 60,000. I'm just doing some very rough math in my head. But, the perception is, Minister, those folks out there think you all are rich. Right? They think ministers are rich. And that that you all should take significant pay cuts. That's what people think. Is this a perverse incentive to hustle? When ministers, the reason ministers' pay was increased many years ago in the early 2000s was to serve as a disincentive to hustle. I don't think it worked, looking at the evidence of the past 18 years since they did that. But I'm saying, if they cut back ministers' pay, will they have to fundraise more? Because you guys are under pressure. You guys have to provide for your constituents. You all have to help pay their bills. And as things get harder, you all have to provide more. If your salaries are cut, will there be more hustling in public life?
Well, I don't generally agree with this philosophy that you should cut salaries of politicians. I think that's headed down a dangerous road, where you end up with two kinds of politicians. Really, you end up either with super rich people who can afford to be in public service and are wealthy and can afford it, and then you end up with hustlers on the bottom end of the scale. So I think there has to be a very sensible approach to salaries. But no, I mean, listen, if nothing else, what the PUP has learned over the past 12 years is that the people of this country expect a better way moving forward in terms of corruption. The election in last year, in November, had everything to do with corruption and mismanagement. It was an absolute rejection of the UDP because of the Belizean people feeling that government had become so corrupt. So I think certainly in our cabinet, there is a strong appreciation for the fact that we have to walk a straight path and that there is no tolerance among the Belizean people for any kind of corruption in our government.
However, people feel, or there's a sentiment in the public, that while you're asking these teachers and public officers to take that pay cut, there are other areas in which tax collection can be more robust, but that your government is reluctant to tax the rich or to collect what taxes there may be to collect. I'm not saying to increase taxes, but I'm saying there are a lot of taxes that are uncollected. Is your government prepared to go after those taxes in the hands of wealthy persons which are uncollected?
Absolutely, absolutely. We've had that discussion. You're absolutely right with the union. That is a priority issue for them. You're absolutely right. They raise that issue consistently in all of our meetings. And we feel very strongly about it. We have discussed it at length in cabinet. And we are committed. In fact, we have agreed with the unions that we want to set up a sort of debt collection unit that within the tax service department, a specific unit, and we hope to engage some of the senior union leaders in that effort. But, we're talking about, I think the last figure I saw was around $146 million outstanding uncollected taxes. About 40 million of that is BTL. Is BTL, $40 million. So, the figures are a bit skewed, and we have to determine what is collectible and what is not. But we are, absolutely, we have had that discussion. The unions, that is a central issue for them, and we share their commitment to ensuring that we do address that issue.
You mentioned BTL, and I know the tax matter that had arisen with the GST office, but isn't there a similar matter as well for SpeedNet? I've seen a figure on a paper. I won't call it an assessment, but for SpeedNet, the Prime Minister's phone company, owing $11.5 million in taxes for the same type of perhaps intercompany transfers. Is this something you are aware of?
I'm not aware of that, Jules. No, I'm
but,
not aware of that.
But the same It should be collected if it's outstanding. Would you agree?
Absolutely, absolutely. And I'm sure the Prime Minister would say that. I mean, obviously, I don't know the circumstances surrounding that issue.
Right. Minister, if we could move on to the broader subject. You know, I spoke about your long experience in government from 2003. And we know that campaigns, you and I are experienced enough. We campaign in poetry and we govern in prose. It's an awful cliche ascribed, I believe, to Mario Cuomo, father of that. Andrew Cuomo is in so much trouble. But your manifesto promises included, and I can read it off the paper. Guys, you all have it in there maybe. 20% teacher salary increase, free education from preschool to sixth form, fair access to $5 million education loan fund, laptop for every student and teacher from standard 4 to fourth form, and equal opportunity, $3 million rural education grant. And the list goes on. You can see it there. Are you prepared tonight to come clean and say that these promises are really pies piled very high in the sky, and that it's simply unachievable? It was unrealistic. It's a political promise that was made, and that's how things are. But it ain't happen.
Absolutely not. Absolutely not.
But how can those things happen, Minister?
Because we have to reprioritize and reallocate funds. I can tell you, for example, in this budget that's coming up on Friday, we will have, obviously we can't have everything at once. And so, for example, we said we would set up a rural education grant fund, a higher education loan fund.
Right.
We will have those in the budget, but not at the amounts that we said there. We will start, I think, with $1 million for each, $1 million for the rural education grant fund, $1 million for the higher education grant fund. We will start, we've already started, you will see reflected in the budget, our National Healthy Start feeding program. We've allocated some funds for that, and we're working with the FAO. They are partnering with us to help us with that. So we have to be more creative. We have to find creative ways of delivering these things.
But you promised a 20% teacher salary increase, and you cut them pay by 10%, sir.
I don't know if that found its way into the final manifesto. You know, we have to look at
that's on the guys pull it up. It's on the internet, sir.
Yeah, the final manifesto. I don't think that was. But the point is, I said earlier that we hope before the end of our 5-year term that we're able to give the teachers and the public officers a salary increase. And the other things, man, are straightforward. The free textbook program, we did it before. We will do it again. The laptop computer program, absolutely achievable. The expansion of the African and Mayan history, I'm already working with my friend and our mutual friend Yasser Musa on that issue. We can get it done. And civics education, that's all about the curriculum. Trained teachers, again, we are, using technology. We're going to get that done.
Sir, but you also spoke about making available that famous 100 million from savings, that you're going to save on recurrent, moving the non-educator workforce, and you're going to have savings of 20 million, and you're going to curb corruption, grow the economy at the annual rate of not less than 4%. Minister, these are not true. It's not going to happen.
No.
Just say it, Minister. I know, Judge Joe, you could blame it on COVID. It won't happen.
Absolutely will happen.
It
absolutely
won't,
will
Minister.
happen.
You're an experienced statesman, sir.
We have a manifesto is a 5-year plan.
It is.
All right. It's not a 1-year plan. We agree.
We agree,
so
sir.
We have 5 years to accomplish these things. So sir, I'm sure I'd be very happy to come back here. I'm sure we won't get all of them done in the first 2 years, but I'm sure by year 3 you will see meaningful advancement of all of those commitments that we made.
You promised to create a National Museum of Natural Science, Anthropology, and Archaeology. Minister, that's an idle dream, even in the United States. Thanks to Niche, I have been to many of them. Yes. The science museums in these big cities where the Maya exhibit is still going on. Those take huge endowments just to keep going. We won't have it, Minister.
Yes, and there's a lot of money. No. That is not money that has to come from the government of Belize. Jules, you know that. As you rightly said, we can attract that kind of financing. There are many entities out
Minister,
there.
we can
that are
empty our
committed.
bond hole. That's how we're going to attract
No,
any
grant
type
funding,
of
man.
FDI.
Grant funding. They will support that.
So you're sticking by this, Minister, because
Absolutely.
at year 5 we
Absolutely.
have to call you back and say
I would be very happy.
I gave you a fair and good chance
Yes.
to say
I
to
look
simply
forward
to,
it.
to
No.
tap out.
Yes.
I gave you a chance to tap out.
I look forward to coming back and proudly talking about our accomplishments in education and culture. I feel very strongly about the museum, and Yasser and I have been talking about that, and I think we can get it done. So I'm excited about that.
Excellent. You heard it here. The minister is sticking to his guns. We'll take our first commercial break so we can drink some water and prepare for the second segment. When we come back, we'll talk a little more about education, but we'll also talk about culture and niche, which is a dying institution, on life support. How will the PUP keep it going? We'll be back with UNCUT after the break.
Studies have shown that simply adding a keyboard and mouse to your laptop increases productivity by 26%. Add a monitor, and you'll be 35% more productive. At Fulltech Systems, we have what you need to enhance your remote work or e-learning experience. With devices such as headsets, video conferencing monitors, webcams, keyboards, mice, docking stations, all with the brands you trust. Keep connected with collaboration tools like Microsoft 365 Suite and Kaspersky and perform efficiently no matter where you are. Fulltech Systems, your technology center, where you'll come for the price, but stay for the service.
Nando's Wholesale. Great products, great prices. For all your COVID time needs and cleanliness protocols, we offer a wide range of disinfectant products at affordable prices. These include Weiss disinfectant sprays in a variety of fragrances and sizes, Bittel and Breeze antibacterial wipes, Amaray and Breeze hand sanitizer in convenient spray cans. All these are available in commercial sizes or restaurant packaging. Nando's products are available at retailers countrywide or contact us at 222-5000. From Corozal to Toledo, Nando's is proud to be serving Belize as its #1 wholesale distributor for over 35 years.
Working off-site doesn't mean you have to be off your game. Studies have shown that simply adding a keyboard and mouse to your laptop increases productivity by 26%. Add a monitor, and you'll be 35% more productive. At Fulltech Systems, we have what you need to enhance your remote work or e-learning experience. With devices such as headsets, video conferencing monitors, webcams, keyboards, mice, docking stations, all with the brands you trust. Keep connected with collaboration tools like Microsoft 365 Suite and Kaspersky and perform efficiently no matter where you are. Fulltech Systems, your technology center, where you'll come for the price, but stay for the service.
fishers have been petitioning for a gillnet ban since the 90s. Following a multi-year process, on November 5, 2020, the government of Belize banned gillnets. Oceana and the Coalition for Sustainable Fisheries are currently dispersing $2 million Belize dollars to licensed gillnet users to help them transition away from the gillnets to clean fishing gear and practices to ensure that licensed Belize fishers and their families are not marginalized. Here's how it's going so far.
This money had been 100% useful for me. For my family, I have my Kamala wife with 3 kids, put food on the table. I bought a 31-footer boat to do deep water fishing.
I started to build some lobster traps. Plus, I had boats and everything already.
I rebuilt my camp and I used part of it for reconstruction, some lobster traps and fish traps.
Gillnet should be out completely. That is one that I'm very much against. We catch anything from half pound to whatever. So you could see where we don't take care of our business.
It's good to practice sustainable fishing because you don't know if the younger generation will be able to know snook, tarpon, and those kind of fish.
I've seen more fish, more school fish in my area, and that's good for the future generation.
I hope we get more fishermen with that conservative attitude.
We can't give up the fight. We have to keep on fighting and do the right thing.
With a successful transition program well underway, these former gillnet users are doing their part to guarantee a future in fishing through sustainable practices and uplifting both their families and their communities. To the generations that came before, and for the generations still to come, a thriving, abundant sea is possible.
Welcome back to UNCUT. We're back here with Minister of Education and Culture. There's another ministry in there, Minister, that I'm missing.
Science and Technology.
Science and Technology, the much neglected.
A new one.
Yeah, PUP creates new ministries every week. No, but we're back here with the Minister of Education. We want to focus on education for this part. If I could get into a few specifics about the reopening of school, because that's a source of much anxiety for parents tonight who are watching. First of all, do you know what percentage of teachers have received their vaccine?
Yeah, the last figure I got, Jules, from the Minister of Health was around like 35% or so.
So a third.
Yeah,
basically
about a third, yeah.
No, I know you took the vaccine last week.
Yeah, last
Right?
week I took the first shot, yeah.
Right, we saw a picture of you taking the vaccine, or the first shot. Why isn't it more than a third?
Yeah, I think, again, they made it available. And the message, we've been trying to get the message out. I know the union has been trying to get the message out. I think, much like the rest of the population, there are, some teachers who are hesitant to take the vaccine. But I think generally, we will get there. We will get there. I think, as I said, that 35% was just before the Easter. I think they started up again yesterday.
So you think we can make it more than 50% for teachers?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I think we'll get over 50% of teachers taking the vaccine. Certainly, when I talked to the union president about it, she says that there's a lot of interest, and they just want to ensure that it's more accessible and easy for them to get. So we have to, I think, encourage the Ministry of Health to do that.
But I have a feeling there's also, as in every sector of society, some reluctance amongst the teaching profession.
Yes.
there's some, I don't want to say anti-vaxxer, but wary sentiment about it.
Yeah, no, I know. I mean, that's, as you said, that's true of the entire society. There's a number of people, a component of the society that's, have a lot of questions. And
is there any of that in the cabinet?
They're waiting. And not everybody has gotten the vaccine. Not everybody. They haven't disclosed why, but not everybody has gotten.
Place of total enlightenment, man. They
should be, should be. Yeah, I think, there's some people wanting to wait to see if we'll get
if we drop down and dead.
or grow extra air or something.
I see.
Or no, waiting to see, if we'll get one-shot vaccine. I've heard that from quite a few people. Okay. Will we get the Johnson & Johnson and all that kind of thing?
But really, it would be preferable as school opens that you have more than 50%, or at least 50%. And we probably won't have that.
Yeah, that would be preferable. If we could have 50-60% of our teachers vaccinated, that would be ideal. But again, remember that this phased reopening that we're talking about now, starting April 12th and then again May 10th, it is optional, absolutely optional.
Right.
There is no mandate from the Ministry of Education that schools are to reopen on April 12th or May 10th. Our objective, as we keep saying, is to have all schools open and operational for face-to-face instruction in September for the new school year.
A number of questions arise immediately, but first, how many schools have applied to reopen on April 12th?
The last report I got, Jules, was yesterday, and they said to me that 70 schools had applied to reopen on April 12th. And of those 70 schools, I think something like 45 or so had gotten approval already. The others are being looked at. And for May 10th, I think 109 schools or so have applied for May 10th to reopen. And again, there's a process, as you know. The schools apply, the ministry vets that application, then a team from the district education center in their respective district visits that school to make sure that they are in compliance with the green light safety standard safety checklists that we have. Once they meet those that satisfy us that they are in compliance with that checklist, we are satisfied with the plan that they have submitted, then the ministry issues a certificate authorizing them to reopen.
But you do accept that it is virtually impossible for schools to do fully online and fully face-to-face. Yes, I know the model is blended learning, that you might do a few days this week and a few days next week, but if there are parents who don't want to send their children to school, and you said that is their choice, then they cannot remain registered in the school because the schools, the administrations, I imagine, will be so busy managing in-face instruction, managing those students who are in this week but out next week, that sort of thing, that they can't have another offering completely for those who don't want to come in at all. How will that be managed?
No, a part of the compliance checklist and a part of the plan that you have to get approved is that you have to ensure that you have available for students the ability to learn online.
Fully online?
Yes, online, yeah.
So those schools that open are expected to have the blended learning for those kids in school, because it's blended, because you might not come in every day,
right,
or the classes might be smaller. But then they also have to support a fully online component.
Yeah, but again, we leave it up to the schools to develop that plan, and the schools have to do so, obviously in consultation with their students, with their parents. So every school has their own approach. We're very flexible, but we want to ensure that, just as you said, that students who, for whatever reason, parents are not comfortable, students are not comfortable, they're not ready to send their children to school, that the school will have a plan for those students. Now, you talk about, a full program of studies. That may not be the case. and parents will have to bear that in mind
Sir,
when
but
they make that decision.
But even as you're cutting teacher salaries, this is an unreasonable request. Blended, first of all, online learning had its own challenges.
It does.
Blended learning poses another set of challenges, and that we want to specify that having certain kids in today, certain kids in next week, that has, and now you want to add a third component. That's cruel and unusual, Minister.
I mean, what's the third component?
The third component is to have a fully online platform as well.
What you need is a plan for your school. That is what you need, a plan for your school. And again, I repeat, if your school is not ready, if your school and your teachers are not ready, your school community is not ready in terms of being able to provide that kind of support to students and their families, then you are not ready to open. And then you should begin to prepare for September. But what's important about this time period is that we believe this is a good time for schools to test out where they are so that you can identify now, before you open in September, what are the weaknesses, what are the challenges in terms of my reopening strategy. Exactly as you said, how will I manage this hybrid approach to learning and teaching in terms of children who don't want to come to school, parents who don't want to send their children to school. How can I manage that? Teachers, you may have teachers who don't want to, because they have underlying conditions or other things, they don't want to come to school. They want to teach remotely. So schools have to be flexible. That is the point. They have to be flexible. They have to come up with we talk about a homegrown plan for the country. Schools have to come up with a homegrown plan that works for them and that meets our requirements at the Ministry of Education.
Are more people applying for homeschooling? Because you still need a permit to do that, I imagine. Are people applying for permits to do that?
Yeah, there was a little spike, I think, last year.
Okay, but none so far.
Not significant numbers. And,
is there any campaign to get parents ready to send their kids back to school? We did just a few vox pops out in the street, and what we found was that people were thinking about, like they want to wait until September.
Yeah.
Parents are not ready. There's a fear threshold, and while they're doing that, children are suffering, especially along the poorest socioeconomic bracket.
Absolutely. Yeah, I saw that, and there was a mixed reaction. Some people were saying, man, we're ready. Our children are not doing anything at home. And that's fundamentally where we are, Jules. We believe, and I certainly believe as the Minister of Education, that we don't have any more time to lose. We have to get started. And because this closure of schools and the lack of face-to-face instruction, this hurts most, as you said, the most vulnerable students, the poorest students, the students in our rural communities who don't have the kind of support that our children may have. They don't have access to proper digital devices. They don't have access to reliable internet services. So I am deeply concerned about those students, or agricultural students, or IT vet students who want to get back into their workshops.
Special needs students.
Special needs students, our preschoolers. I can tell you a lot of preschools have applied to open. They want to get back their little ones into the classroom and engage with them. They need that kind of interaction, that kind of stimulation from their teachers and from their peers to learn and grow, those very early formative years. That is critically important. So we need to make a start. We need to make a start. It won't be perfect. There will be challenges along the way, but we need to make a start as a country, and we need to identify those challenges, identify those weaknesses in the plan, fix them so that we can have a full reopening in September.
Is this a good time to revamp the PSE and to abandon it? I've fought against it for many years. It's punitive against the children who can tolerate it most, who can tolerate it least. They leave school and the system says to them, you're a failure, when really it's a system that has failed. I've said that too many times.
Well, I'm glad to hear you say it again because I think you will see some important, I view them as revolutionary reforms in education. And I think we have to take advantage exactly of where we are now in education and the use of technology. But we have to take a critical look at all of these exams, in particular the PSC, but also a lot of these other regional examinations, which I think, in my view, are really, really meaningless.
Minister, you promised that you would set up a team of, quote, a team of creative thinkers who are bold, passionate, smart, and progressive to reform and advance your education policy agenda. I don't see that. What I see around you is status quo. Are you able to name a few names, give a few names of persons who qualify as bold, passionate, smart, and progressive in this reform agenda?
Well, I mean, understand, Jules. I mean, I consider myself a critical thinker. I believe the CEO that I brought in, I think, is a critical thinker, somebody who is reform-oriented, CEO Diane Mejia. The Chief Education Officer has been around for quite a bit and has a lot of experience.
Both status quo?
No. I wouldn't describe the CEO, Diane Mejia, as status quo at all. Okay. She is, I think, a brilliant leader. And I think she's, as I said, when I was the Minister of Education before, she was involved fully in the reform agenda of the ministry. In fact, she put together the reform agenda in search of reform that we put together at that time. Now we have an opportunity to advance that agenda. So I know she's excited about that work. But the reality is, Jules, we came into office and faced the crisis. Our objective from day one was to set up a COVID task force. And we have a lot of bright, creative people on that task force to help us and guide us and make recommendations for how we could safely get back into the classroom. That had to be our first priority. So all these reform ideas that we have, we still have them, but we had to put them on the back burner because we had to address the crisis in front of us.
So if I give you a blight for the crisis, will you concede that you do not have a team of creative thinkers who are both passionate, smart, and progressive?
Not yet. Yeah,
not yet.
Not a team. We have individuals, but we don't have a team.
Okay, Anthony Sylvester, the well-known criminal attorney, very well respected in the courts. He is the person you chose as the chairman of the University of Belize. But I will argue that he does not have the vision and the skills that are required to pull that university up, and you know that it needs that effort and energy. He, again, is at best a status quo appointment in that regard. How would you answer that criticism?
No, absolutely not. I would invite you to have a conversation, a discussion with Chairman Sylvester about his vision for the University of Belize. I'm sure he'd be glad to talk to you. No, man, we did not make that choice arbitrarily. That was made on airs of discussions that I have had with Anthony Sylvester about education. He's very passionate about education. He has taught at UB. He has a lot of good, excellent ideas about how we can reform that institution. And he has been hard at work, trying to engage the UB community in really moving the university forward. Again, we're in a COVID crisis in terms of the National University. The president of the university has been out of the country for 1 year. The board, the UB finances are in a mess. So there is a lot of work to do. But I certainly would challenge any suggestion that Anthony Sylvester Jr. Is not up to the job. He is absolutely up to the job, and he will deliver. We work very closely together. He will deliver on our agenda to reform the National University of Belize. That's a central component of our education agenda. There's a lot of work to do there. We have to turn the university around. and make that university truly
And you
into
really
a national.
feel Anthony is the man
not
to do
alone,
that?
not alone, man. There is nothing, no one-man show.
Right.
I'm not a one-man show at the Ministry of Education, not alone. But he shares my vision. He shares the vision of our government, and he is committed to the work and passionate about the work that lies ahead.
We'll take our last quick commercial break. When we come back, layoffs at Niche, they continue. But you haven't heard the worst news about Niche yet. It's on life support and dying fast. Can the PUP keep it going? When we come back, that's the last set of questions we'll ask the minister.
Mateys. Are you thirsty? Ahoy, Captain! Yo, pirates! We sail to mainland in search of a bar. Our thirsty pirates we are, looking for rum or barley wine of the best brew we could ever find.
Caribbean International Brewery Company Limited invites you to find our hidden treasures. Look under the cover of any of our products. H2O drinking water, My Cola soft drink, and Pirate beer for a chance to win any of these fabulous prizes. Free water, free soft drink, free beer, t-shirts, fans, bicycles, motorcycles, and an Isuzu pickup truck. Uncover to discover with Caribbean International Brewery Company Limited. No restrictions apply.
Wholesale is the distributor for the full line of Badia spices, including the original complete seasoning, the perfect combination of ingredients and spices prepared to enhance the natural flavor of your favorite foods. Also, cinnamon powder for all your desserts, fruits, and beverages, and as special dishes. All these are available in commercial sizes or restaurant packaging. Nando's products are available at your local retailer or contact us at 222-5000. From Corozal to Toledo, Nando's is proud to be serving Belize as its #1 wholesale distributor for over 35 years.
Working off-site doesn't mean you have to be off your game. Studies have shown that simply adding a keyboard and mouse to your laptop increases productivity by 26%. Add a monitor and you'll be 35% more productive. At Fulltech Systems, we have what you need to enhance your remote work or e-learning experience. With devices such as headsets, video conferencing monitors, webcams, keyboards, mice, docking stations, all with the brands you trust. Keep connected with collaboration tools like Microsoft 365 Suite and Kaspersky and perform efficiently no matter where you are. Fulltech Systems, your technology center, where you'll come for the price, but stay for the service.
Wholesale, great products, great prices. For all your COVID time needs and cleanliness protocols, we offer a wide range of disinfectant products at affordable prices. These include Weiss disinfectant sprays in a variety of fragrances and sizes, Bittle and Breeze antibacterial wipes, Amaray and Breeze hand sanitizer in convenient spray cans. All these are available in commercial sizes or restaurant packaging. Nando's products are available at retailers countrywide or contact us at 222-5000. From Corozal to Toledo, Nando's is proud to be serving Belize as its #1 wholesale distributor for over 35 years.
Welcome back to the final segment of Uncut. We want to race into the issue of niche. Minister, the issue of culture in Belize. I've criticized your appointment of the niche board, saying it doesn't have representation from anyone that must create to live. It has elites who can not create and still live quite well. But it is a far cry better than the vile UDP board that preceded it. So it's an improvement, but it's a disappointment for the PUP because the PUP prides itself as a party of cultural thinking. Explain to me what went into the composition of the of the niche board as it is.
I mean, I think that's a very unfair description of the board. We have excellent people on the board. And I think you have to appreciate where niche is right now and why we needed, in my view, we needed the board we have. Niche is absolutely out of any source of revenues. I think you know niche, under niche's umbrella, we have 14 archaeological parks. We have the houses of culture. We have the Museum of Belize, the Government House, the Golson House in Belmopan. All of those come under the Museum of Belize. All of those come under the umbrella of niche. We have, before COVID, we had about 225 employees. Now we're down to about 168. This is even before I became the minister. The staff at niche have been on 50% pay. The administrative staff have been on 50% pay since March of last year. The rangers who are on the front line protecting our national assets, the archaeological parks, they are on 80% pay. Very, very difficult and challenging situation.
And you all have laid off.
No revenue.
Up to recently, people have been laid off from niche.
Yes, some people have been laid off.
Retrenchment is a UDP word, Minister.
It's not
How
retrenchment.
you make that happen?
It's not retrenchment. We just do not have the revenues. So in many cases, Jules, we talk to people and we say, listen, you'll have to continue with 50% pay. And some people choose to walk away and say, try we look somewhere else. So it's a combination of those things. But niche has no revenues. Niche had revenues, I think, in 2019 of around $8 million. Last year, for the same period of time, it was around $180,000. Dramatic fall in revenues.
And this is because of COVID, and the major source of revenue was
tourism,
cruise ship.
the archaeological parks.
Right.
And the fees paid to those archaeological parks go to niche. Yeah.
Right, exactly, especially at the Nordstein Cave.
So we needed a board, to get to the point, we needed a board that could help us to restructure niche, to look at the finances of niche. And I needed people like Mike Coy, who has a strong finance background, Gavin, and all of these people are also involved in culture, man.
But these people are also ministers,
You're
brothers.
dismissing that.
I accept they're involved in culture.
Gavin, all of these people, And,
but you accept they're
Carlo.
ministers' brothers.
Well, one is, yeah, one is. The other
And one is a
son.
minister's son, sorry.
Yeah, but I mean, this is niche, and I felt that they could contribute in a meaningful way to help in that restructuring process of restructuring and getting the finances back on track, coming up with a plan for dealing with the financial challenges faced at niche.
But the criticism I made is that there's no representation of the starving artists, so to speak. And right now, it's not just a cliche. Those artists are starving,
Yeah, absolutely,
Minister.
absolutely.
Who is keeping those creatives in mind that have no means of revenue, no outlets, they can't even get vaccines? They haven't been included in tourism, which is, to me, a very criminal oversight that, you guys are just, you all are worse than the janitors. It's this contempt for creatives at the institutional level. And it's not a PUP thing or a UDP thing. It's just how institutions are. Explain to me what consideration is being given to
we
these
discussed
people.
that issue. We discussed the issue of the artists. I think the challenge with the artists is that they're not organized. They're not organized in a way that enables you to identify them as a group and say, okay, we'll put this structure in place for them to get the vaccine and that type of thing. But we did discuss that at the last meeting of the cabinet, and the Minister of Health did say that they would take that into account and try to address that vaccine issue through the Ministry of Health. So we have discussed that.
So will it happen though?
Yes, I believe it will happen. He said he would address it, but the Ministry of Health will have to determine how that is done, how it's rolled out to artists.
Because right now they're in Group 7. Group 6 is a regular citizen, and creatives are last.
You put them in Group 7 on your own. But you are absolutely right. We have to come up with some, and this is a part of the mandate that I have given to the board. Let's come up with some creative ways of trying to engage. But we could not do anything, Jules, because of the COVID situation. We could not, our hands were literally tied in terms of any type of activity, bringing people together. I mean, as you know, artists and engaging with culture requires bringing people together. And that is what culture is all about, bringing people together. And our artists have not been able to do that.
Niche is a creation of the PUP.
Yes.
And right now it's on the verge of collapse. It has no money. Yeah. I don't know how you all are meeting salaries. I guess it's from the government, which is also broke. I'm saying, how long can the institution keep going, and is the PUP, is your government prepared to continue to subsidize it even with these pay cuts? It has to be costing tens of thousands of dollars a month to just keep the institution afloat.
Yeah, well, again, we're hopeful that that the economy will begin to rebound. The tourism industry, we are hoping, will begin to reopen, and that, of course, will help to generate revenues for niche. The government is committed. In the budget, we're allocating, the subvention, $2.8 million to niche. That is what is keeping us going now. But that's at a reduced salary of 50% and 80%. We are hopeful that between now and between April and June, that we will be able to work out a plan. I've been discussing some certain issues with the Ministry of Finance to see how we can be creative in terms of raising some funds for niche. So we are working on that. Along with the Ministry of Finance, but I can assure you and the Belizean people and the artists that we in the People's United Party, who created niche, will never allow niche to die on our watch. We will in fact ensure that we are able to revive niche, to breathe new life into it, and to make sure that we are pushing forward our culture agenda, which I am very, very excited about. I think there's a lot of work we can do in culture and create community spaces across the country where our artists and musicians can thrive and begin to benefit from their work.
can I ask about the polarizing figure of the president, Sapna Bodrani? Many people in your party, media personalities, had scandalized and I would say slandered her in the run-up to the elections. But she's still there. Does she continue to have your confidence, or is she there by some force of contract?
I don't think anybody in the PUP went after Ms. Budrani. That was an internal UDP fight,
sir,
if you
it
recall.
was vile on the radio, sir.
But that was an internal UDP fight.
Sir, what was said on the radio by leading personalities?
You should have asked your guests last week about that. They was at the center of that fight.
Right.
That sought to embarrass the president.
An ill wind blew, and I won't build on the word wind. On Vibes Radio, I recall hearing.
I have had no problems with working with Ms. Budrani since I took over as Minister of Culture. We are in a very, very difficult and challenging time. She has a contract. But as we speak, she continues to enjoy my confidence.
She will remain as the president of NICH and the administrator?
Yes, she has a contract that runs into next year.
But you will not seek to terminate the contract?
No. When the contract comes up, we will review it at that time, obviously, but not before the expiration of the contract.
Okay, Minister, as we close tonight, we are heading into a week when the budget will be presented on Friday, but the government may also be receiving notice of industrial action in the next few days. As I alluded to earlier, you've seen this movie before. How do you view the upcoming days? Do you view it with anxiety or with the certainty that, hey, we're a strong, young government, we will stay the course, and we know that we can bring this thing around eventually?
Well, obviously a bit of anxiety, but I'm confident in the purpose that we have. I think there's a sense of purpose in what we're doing. And I think that we feel very strongly that the Belizean people will understand and appreciate that we are on the right side of this issue. As I keep saying, we do not want to be here. We have been forced here by heirs of abuse and waste and neglect and mismanagement and corruption. We are here, and that is where we are now. We have continued to have great respect for our teachers and public officers. I certainly feel that there's still an opportunity. I still have hope that there's an opportunity for us to find some common ground. And I certainly hope that good sense and reason will prevail among our public officers and teachers, and that they will appreciate that we need to come together to find a homegrown, equitable solution to this challenge facing our country. If we do not do that, if we are unable to do that, then the options are dire. And I don't think any of us want to go down that road.
You all had proposed a 5-hour reduction in the work week, but I can see how that would benefit public officers. But how would it benefit teachers? You can't change the hours of school.
Yeah, we discussed that with the teachers. I mean, we had first said 4 hours, and our first thought was about public officers. And then when we broached it with the teachers, they said they would look at it and see if it was something that could be worked out. And then they said perhaps maybe it would mean taking off a half day every week. But, at the end of the day, it was a proposal put on the table, and we have not been able to reach an agreement.
So, in your mind, the door, just a sliver of hope remains as the door is slightly ajar, even though the government is irreversible in its position, if I heard the Prime Minister correctly today, that we're going ahead with these cuts.
We have no choice, but again, as the Prime Minister has said, if there is an opportunity for the unions to say to us, listen, we believe this would be a better approach in terms of how we achieve this $60 million savings that we're trying to achieve. If they would like to suggest a tiered approach to the cut, we are open to that kind of discussion. We're open to that kind of discussion.
Do you view it as a personal failure that despite these many long hours of meetings, you ended right where I could have predicted it would end, with both sides saying, we have to push this through, and the other side saying, well, you all will have to feel the brunt of industrial action?
No,
It was
I
all
think
in
our team, no. I think we had to do that work. We had a duty and obligation to our partners in development, the unions, to share with them where we are in terms of the economic and fiscal situation facing the country. So we had that obligation, and that's what we did. We engaged in this process. It was budget consultations. That was what it was. All about saying to the unions, this is where we are, and these are the gaps that we need to fill. How can we work together to fill them?
We're done, but I cannot resist but asking a personal question. Minister, you shouldn't even be here. I was there at the press conference when you retired in 2015. But you stayed on, and I think you quite like being a politician. Public service is the best spin we can put on it. But explain to me, what are your feelings now as you are entering sort of, you're a former leader, and you're now in another stage of your political life as like a strong second man, not superseding the Deputy Prime Minister, of course, but your years of experience are much relied upon. Should you even be here at this point? Is that something you question, when you're in the throes of these extremely difficult negotiations? Do you say, as David Byrne did in Talking Heads, this is not my beautiful life?
No, well, I certainly didn't expect to spend the first several months of our new term in government negotiating and consulting with the unions about such a difficult, challenging situation in our country. But I'm very, very proud to be a part of this government, Jules. I think we have a good, sincere, passionate, committed team. I enjoy an excellent relationship with the Prime Minister. I enjoy working with him, and I'm here to help in any way that I can. I am here because of, you asked why am I here? I'm here because of the people of Freetown. They convinced me to run again. I felt I had unfinished business in Freetown. That was my primary reason for running. These people had stood with me during the darkest hours of opposition, and I was not able to help them. Many of them want land. Many of them want access to housing. Many of them want access to educational opportunities for their children, jobs. Those are the things that drive me. And that brought me back into the political arena. My team in Freetown saying to me, we need you to run one more time. And that's why I did it. That's why I did it. I did it for them. And I'm very glad that I did it. And I look forward to this 5-year term.
So you said one more time. I hope not to get like Said Palme.
I believe it's going to be a rewarding term. It started out rough for the country and for us because of the challenges we're faced with. But I believe we will finish this term very, very strongly, and we will be able to deliver for the people who have supported us.
So will you run again in 2025?
That's not a decision I have made as yet. I really came into this last election saying it would be my last.
You're to get like Said Palme.
No, well, I'm still a young man, but I just, we'll see. But I came into this election saying this would be my last election.
Okay. Well, we'll know in 5 years when we bring him back and we'll ask him about all those hard commitments that he kept to. But we want to thank the Minister of Education, Culture, Science and Technology, Francis Fonseca, for being our guest tonight. He has been gracious throughout his time in public life, even though I have often been, if not unkind, at least rough. And indeed, Minister Fonseca has never dodged. And he's been exemplary in that regard, and I thank him. I thank him for being here tonight. Please join us next week when we'll have another exciting guest and a more controversial one. who I promised to fight with next week on Uncut. Thanks for joining us. Be back next Wednesday.